Hi, my nickname is Egorixa. I showed you how life goes in the village, and today I'll demonstrate where I live. I'll only walk around my block number 20. Blocks with similar planning principles were built in many cities across the country. You'll learn why I don't need to leave my block to fully provide myself with all the benefits of civilization and how we, the outskirts of St. Petersburg, interact with the fabric of the city every day. I'll tell you in details about my blog, but as a petersburger, I'm ready to say that what is said in the video is generally true for all non-central areas of the city. Of course, Petersburg is a large and heterogeneous city, so it's impossible to draw some kind of middle line in different aspects. Each district is unique in its own way, but I'll try to give you an idea of how the majority of the population of Petersburg lives. By my block, I mean this space, bounded by avenues in the north and south and streets in the west and east. We usually call such blocks microdistrict, but the word block is clear to everyone, so I'll use it. This is my house where I have lived since I was 4 years old. A 5-story building with a quiet courtyard on one side and a green zone on the other. This type of house is called Brezhnevka. But how did it happen that there are stunningly beautiful palaces in the center and there is this residential development? To figure it out, let's rewind the film back to the 1970s. The district was built in the 70s of the 20th century. There was no market economy in the USSR, so there was no private construction either. All plans, design, architecture, infrastructure of future houses and districts were approved by the administrative institutions of the city, or in the capital, in Moscow. The idea of mathematical and statistical planning of new districts dominated in urban planning. The life of society in new neighborhoods was carefully modeled. People's needs were calculated, optimal routes to workplaces, schools, clinics, and other social infrastructure facilities were calculated. Instead of perimeter development of blocks with closed courtyard spaces, the practice of creating microdistrict became widespread. I live in one of these and will give you a tour. The Soviet economy was terribly inefficient, and the issue of resettlement in cities was always acute. People lived in barracks and communal apartments where a family of 4 or 5 members could live in one small room. During World War II, part of the housing stock was destroyed, which further worsened the living conditions of citizens. There was no money, the efficiency of construction was low. Therefore, the government decided that it was necessary to build houses from cheap standard panel blocks manufactured at the factory. These blocks were brought to the construction site ready for assembly. From them, like Lego bricks, identical houses were erected, mainly 5 and 9-story. In the process of developing solutions, architects were inspired by social housing in France and other Western European countries. This allowed them to save money on production technology and begin to build buildings cheaper and faster. They also saved money by rationalizing living space. For example, the kitchen area for 5-story buildings was set at 6 square meters, since humane rationalizers calculated that such an area was the most convenient and efficient in terms of the number of steps. Wherever you look, everything is within arm's reach. A 9-story building can accommodate more apartments, but then each entrance would have to be provided with an elevator. They decided to save on it, so more than half of the buildings are no higher than 5 stories. They considered that climbing the stairs above the 5th floor is too difficult, especially for elderly citizens. Let me remind you once again that you had no opportunity to design the apartment you wanted, and freedom of movement within the country didn't exist. But let's not talk about the sad things. The progressive houses that were designed and built were named Hrushchevka, in honor of the General Secretary of the Communist Party Nikita Khrushchev, who gave the order to change the construction of buildings in the USSR. The goal of these changes was declared to be the following idea: so that by 1980, when communism comes, every Soviet family will meet it in their own apartment. In practice, communism didn't come in either 80s or 90s, and in 91st, Soviet Russia ceased to exist. I live in a slightly improved version of the ideas of Soviet architects, since the Krasnoselski district was built under the next Soviet emperor, Leonid Brezhnev. By analogy with Hrushchevka, these houses are called Brezhnevka. They are only a little more technologically advanced than those that were built earlier. For example, the area of my kitchen is the same 6 square meters. Typical, or as they are also called, serial houses of St. Petersburg, not to mention pre-revolutionary palaces, are a large and fascinating topic. I'll show only the buildings of my block. Many of them can be found both in other parts of the city and throughout the territory of the former Soviet Empire. The houses of this series are something between Stalinka and Hrushchevka. High ceilings and bay windows indirectly indicate that their design began before the fight against architectural excesses. The most popular Hrushchevka, Series GI. The external walls in such houses are lightweight, aerated concrete panels. The main feature of this series is that there are only 2 apartments per floor. Therefore, the apartments include from 3 to 5 rooms with windows facing both sides of the house. In the end section, there is a window on the 3rd side. Brezhnevka. In terms of consumer qualities, panel and brick Brezhnevka are not far from Khrushchevka. Single entrance 9-story houses. There are 5 apartments on each floor, 2 of which are shifted half a floor higher than the others. All apartments have windows facing 2 sides. The long and most common 9-story buildings of Petersburg belong to this series. The appearance and layout of the apartments may differ, but similar houses were built throughout the city and beyond. Some of the most modern Soviet houses of the 1980s. The plant produced a wide range of panels and structural elements for monolithic panel houses, so many residential buildings built using them are distinguished by a variety of planning solutions. Only in our district you can still find cozy 2- and 3-story brick houses that were built here shortly before the start of the main development of the area. The layout of their apartments is convenient, there are few neighbors, and there is a lot of space around the houses. The optimization of apartments was carried out successfully. Therefore, new districts were also subject to rationalization. The main idea of each block in new districts is the location of all necessary social facilities within walking distance, and new districts are still being built according to this principle. It was assumed that a Soviet citizen should work near home and his children should go to school and kindergarten nearby. He was born, grew up, worked, died, and all without leaving his block or district. Everyone was given the opportunity to walk to shops, clinics, children's sections, administration and public transport. And now more about the availability of social benefits in my block. Education. We have 3 kindergartens and 1 school. If you think that's not enough, there are 2 schools literally across the street and several more hidden in the depth of the neighboring blocks. By the way, I graduated from this French gymnasium, but I've almost forgotten the French language. Each school has a sports ground with a football, volleyball and basketball court, as well as exercise machines and stands. The appearance and quality of these playgrounds are far from American ones. This is the kindergarten I went to. They recently renovated the playground there. There are many of them, but each one is assigned to a specific group and kids from another group cannot play on it. All schools and kindergartens are surrounded by high fences to ensure safety, which in practice they don't guarantee, but they greatly spoil the appearance. Growing up, I always feel like I was in prison behind this fence. Medicine. Across from my gymnasium, there is a not very attractive building that has recently undergone major renovations. This is a maternity hospital, which is the only one in this part of the district, so many visitors flock to it. There is a clinic nearby, an institution where general practitioners receive patients and refer them to the necessary specialists, some of whom may work in the same building. We have such a thing as a residence permit. This is a place of permanent residence, which determines which social institutions and at what address you should go. For example, a certain clinic is assigned to each address. I don't go to this one, but to the one in the next block. It takes the same amount of time to get there. That's just how the system is set up. I assume that this is done in order to evenly distribute the workload among the institutions. There are large hospitals in the city for serious illnesses that require a medical examination. The closest one to me is located in 7 minutes away by car, but fortunately, I've never been there. Government services. We have a police building that serves the entire district and is involved in trips to criminal events. In each block there are small police stations that deal with non-emergency offenses, theft, fraud, hooliganism and so on. The entire area is divided into small municipalities, each of which includes from several blocks to huge areas of new development. Accordingly, each such governing body has premises in which they work and receive citizens. For interaction at the level of federal authorities, and not only, there are multifunctional centers. One of them is located next to my house. This is a centralized institution through which you can resolve all basic issues with the state, get a passport, issue many documents, and so on. Business. The population density, due to the specifics of the layout, is low, so the bulk of the business is drawn to the main avenue. For everyday life, there is everything you need: hairdressers, equipment repair, bakeries, clothing and shoe shops, and, of course, grocery stores. My house is so conveniently located that within a 5-minute walk in any direction, I will definitely find some grocery store. Here is the closest one to my house, Plovdiv. And here is another one, and another one, and another one. I counted 8 in total. And another one. And this is without taking into account the markets and liquor shops. And another one. For the same reason of density, we don't have restaurants, although there are many fast food restaurants. For example, the already mentioned bakeries and shawarma stalls. There are no hypermarkets nearby either, but they can be reached quickly. They were built in new multi-story blocks. Transport. Public transport in my district has been well developed and modernized over the past 5 years. Unfortunately, we still don't have a subway station. The subway is the main and most convenient way to travel around the city. The nearest station is a 25 minutes ride by public transport along the main avenue. Stops are located at every intersection between blocks, and the number of bus and trolley bus routes is even excessive. Currently, about 7 types of wheeled transport depart from my bus stop in the direction of the subway. Buses also run along the streets perpendicular to the main avenue, but much less frequently. We also have a tram, which was once the main type of transport during the development of the area. Now it has lost its relevance, since its route is less convenient than that of buses. However, the railway network is being repaired, stops are being reconstructed, and the tram fleet is being updated. Along the southern edge of the block, there is a railway that connects the city center and Peterburg, and also go further to Sosnovy Bor. With its help, during rush hours, you can get to the city center the fastest. I think this information is enough to understand how a typical citizen lives. For those who is curious, here are 2 more interesting facts about my district. Most of the streets in the district are named after fictional and some real heroes of World War II, or their names are somehow connected with those events, such as the name of the main avenue I mentioned. It's called Veteranov Avenue, in honor of all the veterans of that war. Fact 2. Krasnoselski district is the greenest city district with regular development in terms of vegetation and air quality. So do I like living here? I'll explain now. First, about what I like least about my block. For obvious reasons, the quality of soundproofing and the appearance of the houses leave much to be desired. While it's possible to negotiate with noisy neighbors or lay noise-suppressing materials, it's difficult for me to put up with the depressing design of the facades. The subway station hasn't yet been built, Getting there by bus means wasting up to 30 minutes that could be covered underground in 5. Due to the low density of development, there are few people, so we don't have large shopping malls and hypermarkets, but you can always get to them by transport. On the other hand, I highlight the following positive aspects for myself. Low density of development allows you to leave a lot of space for greenery and walking zones. Also, there are not many people and the houses are located at a significant distance from each other, which, in my opinion, creates a certain coziness. Low-rise development also has a positive effect on visual interaction with the city. Soviet designers really managed to build up the blocks so that all the necessary infrastructure for life is within walking distance: shops, clinics, schools, and so on. Although there is no subway station, but if you don't need to go to the city center every day, then public transport is more than enough to comfortably move around the district. For me, the pros significantly outweigh the cons. At the same time, I see a vector for how our block could be significantly improved, but unfortunately it doesn't depend on me, but on corrupt authorities and indifferent citizens. I love my neighborhood, although I want to live like in the American dream, with my own house and a large plot of land. I wouldn't exchange my cozy, almost village life inside the metropolis for another district of the city. I also don't want to change my block, since in general it's almost ideal in terms of the location of social facilities. This is approximately what life looks like in a remote district of St. Petersburg. Tell us how you liked my neighborhood in the comments to this video. Thank you very much for walking with me today and getting to know better how average Petersburgers live. See you on new non-tourist walks around St. Petersburg.